actually.
Well, let's get it on. In the top right side, we are looking at the main base of the Mexican Protoss player representing Team Alpha X. It is Pacomike.
And spawning over in the bottom left-hand side, playing for Team Exxon, it is Cham. I was really tempted to do it in the smooth voice, and I was thinking, nah, Kevin's going to make too much fun of me. And I'm too exhausted at the moment to really fight back a good fight, you know?
Well, I'm with you. I've been like lightheaded for a couple hours. I'm like, all right. These days are still pretty long. I've missed them, but it feels good. But at the same time, I'm like, okay, it's a lot of StarCraft in one day, but hey, it's been fun. Definitely had a couple of cool highlights, and yeah, Europe is always my favorite, and it's not just because we're biased or the top dogs are from Europe, but I'm such a big fan of the 4 massive groups of round robin, where I feel like the up-and-comers are truly able to show what they're made of. This is really cool to get it going again.
Yeah, and it is super funny. Like, if you take a time machine to like 5 years ago and you talk about the top of the European scene, very few of the names were around or even at the top back then, you know? Like, it's very cool to see, because, I mean, obviously, I think Showtime was really good. I think it was when Laser was first coming on scene. Yeah, there was Nerd Show, there was Stefano back then was pretty all right. But yeah, it's totally different. And like since then, we've had quite a few players take the scene by storm. I mean, Neeb was one of the first to do it. Then Cyril, obviously. Raynor, now Clem. It's maybe soon to be Max Pax. It's really cool to see what the future holds for Europe. And I think that's the real exciting thing for us all.
Mm-hmm. And we just had a pretty awesome showing by a Terran player that we haven't seen that much of yet, the Brazilian Terran. Let's see if Pacomike. Baco is actually a drink in the Netherlands.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's rum and Bacardi.
Got something on the brain, eh?
Yeah.
Wait, rum and Bacardi?
No. I want to say rum and Coke, so it's like Bacardi Coke and Baco. And I was like, Pacomike, and I'm like, no, that's definitely not his name. It would be a cool name, but that's not it. We'll get Cats on, I believe, tomorrow, actually. And then Cats can tell us the story again of why Pacomike is a very fun nickname.
This game, starting on Jagannatha, we do have Cham taking 3 bases pretty quickly as well, pretty smoothly. I do see quite a few other Zergs droning up a bit more and taking the 3rd a little bit later, but yeah, we also have Pacomike on his side of the map going for the Stargate opening. This is most likely going to be a Void Ray, right, in this kind of positioning?
I'd be kind of surprised if he doesn't play double Stargate Void Ray with the quick rush into the Disruptors. I think this is a good map for it, especially when you go up against Cham. You kind of know in general what to expect. We know that the man likes to be aggressive with Queens and Roaches. I honestly think that on average the Protoss players have gotten so much better against this, and that's why you don't see the German taxi a whole lot anymore. Protoss players just got better in Void Ray positioning and delaying the push and getting enough static defenses up to deal with this. But we'll see if that's actually what Pacomike wants to do, or if he's got something spicy in store for us, maybe with a ground follow-up.
You know, it's a real shame we don't see the German taxi anymore. Like, that strategy, even though it's got a really cool name, that is not the best strategy to watch happen, you know?
I didn't hate it. I thought it was kind of fun.
Oh, really? Just having Queens, like, walk across the map and kill you?
Well, they don't walk. They fly to the other side of the map, man.
Ah, okay. I mean, I thought the creep highway strats were cooler, honestly, than the ones that fly and just kill you.
I mean,
but each to their own, Kev. Each to their own. We've all been killed by Queens before.
You didn't like the Italian Vespa? Come on now.
You know, so this tells you about a strat. I preferred all the names of the strat than the actual strat itself.
I do agree with that part. They made it sound really fun. Well, yeah, the German taxi evolved into the Munich Metro, and that's a pretty good one, too.
You know, I pulled out the London Underground when I was playing Zerg, laddering up. I was causing havoc to all those 5.5k Protosses with my Zerg.
Okay. Pacomike went for a super early fleet beacon, and he's going into carriers. We saw something similar of Gong Fu Banda earlier today, but Gong Fu stayed on 2 bases a bit longer, of course. Pacomike is making it seem like, oh, there's going to be some Void Rays, there's not much you can do about it, but he's actually rushing into carriers, And it's kind of hard to kill a carrier opening with queens on the Protoss side of the map, right? You'll be safe and sound at home, but it's a little bit harder to truly do something about it. I kind of like this build, actually, especially if Cham does not drone up like a madman. Unfortunately for Pacomike, Cham is doing that, and that is obviously the correct thing to do, but I think this is kind of cool.
Yeah, I was just thinking, Kev, I like this variation of this, two Stargate carrier opening much more than I like Gung Fu's. And Gung Fu's didn't land him in too bad a spot, honestly, because this is greedy, but it's kind of cool. But to be fair, Cham is doing everything right against this. Like, the Spire is very early. Yeah, I mean, he's obviously handling this very well, and he gets a pretty darn early scout on this with the Lings.
Yeah, it's hard to see it really a lot earlier than this. So now we can get a couple of Spore Crawlers forward. The queen count currently is only at 5. That could be a little bit problematic, but 5 queens and 2 Spore Crawlers, that should still be good enough to keep 2 carriers at bay. Now, 2 carriers and a Void Ray. What if they just completely avoid the fort base and they go into the main base instead? I'd say there is some potential there.
Certainly is. I'm almost wondering, as a Protoss player, is it ever worth, when you invest in air and survive, to just go like a 3rd Stargate, maybe a 4th Stargate at this point? Because I see them always kind of resorting back to the ground army.
Well, I mean, I like it, but not everyone else does. They probably feel they lose too much momentum, but this is actually going to be a bit hard for Cham, man. I don't know if the queen count is really high enough. The 2 carriers alone is already intimidating with +1 air weapons, but now the Void Ray is helping out too. That's 2 queens that go down quite quickly. This Spore Crawler in the main base will live, but not before a few more drones fall. Now, of course, once the Corruptors come out, it's going to get a little bit more dicey, but this is a good start by Pacomike, man. Very well done. And he can take more drones down at the fort base.
Yeah, I like how this is going. Like, when I saw this build happening, Kev, I was like, this is pretty sweet, actually. Deflects the attack as well. Now, he does have to be careful. If he recalls now, I would love that.
Yeah. Or recall the moment he sees the first Corruptor. And that's right now. Come on. No, he's gonna fight. I mean, he does have +1 air weapons. He did kill a couple queens. He's got another carrier showing up. Is it actually happening? No, it's probably not happening, but this is kind of cool. Oh no, he misses the recall, so he's gonna lose a carrier. Man, still one hell of a start though.
I mean, could have been worse. Like, he survives. He's now making a lot of Stalkers to kind of deal with these Corruptors. Oh, I hope that carrier does not get picked off for Pacomike's sake, because so far, this has been a splendid showing from the underdog.
Hey, imagine a world where he opened up with the 2 Void Rays, right? And then he would have actually researched Flux Veins while flying to the other side of the map. And he would have immediately made Void Rays after carrier 2 and 3. And he would have just reinforced his push with Void Rays. Wouldn't he just win there?
Honestly, I think so. Like, I'm a massive fan of the Skytoss builds. But yeah, this is now going to get a little bit problematic for Pacomike. And this is a good use of that amount of Corruptors.
Yep, you don't want to lose too many though, but that Nexus is going to die real quick. Let's see how many Corruptors fall in return. So far, the count is only 2. The 3rd one does fall. 3 Corruptors for a Nexus. Obviously not a bad trade for Cham when you have 83 drones at home.
Definitely not. And if you're wondering what you can do with 83 drones as a Zerg, pretty much anything. The Crete spread is starting to move out now, giving Cham this idea of safety. But he's maxing out on a lot of roaches and pumping out a few Corruptors. So a very, very brute force army from Cham.
It looks quite decent for Cham, but he has to be careful. Because if he takes a bad fight off creep against Zealots and Archons, where the roaches just get annihilated, I'm sure that he will take care of the carriers. But what if he doesn't take care of the Archons and Zealots? If it's Archons and Void Rays, the Corruptors are really going to struggle. I'd love to see a very early battery overcharge here if we want to fight. And I feel like the Protoss is not totally sure if he wants to fight or not. But here come the Void Rays, here come the carriers. Let's see if the Corruptors can get the job done. The answer is no, and this is starting to look like a hold, mate.
It definitely is. That's not enough Corruptors to deal with this air armada. And I'm a little surprised that he didn't start Flux Veins on these Void Rays, because that would definitely help the chasing down potential and even just get into bases to deal with these Corruptors.
The Flux Accelerators, right?
Ever since I said the name wrong earlier with Flux Capacitor or whatever.
Oh, Capacitor, yeah.
I've been a little bit worried about saying it incorrectly. Oh, that Corrosive Bio was actually really good on the roaches.
And the Corruptors do manage to take out another Nexus. It's a shame that Pacomike couldn't activate Battery Overcharge there, because that probably could have saved the Nexus a bit longer. Then maybe the Void Race, especially if they had Flux Veins, would have absolutely been able to save that base. But Pacomike's still hanging in there. And I don't hate this position, because Cham is only on 4 bases. Obviously, the main base is going to start running dry real soon. And it's not like he's got a massive bank. Like, Cham needs to start finding some good trades. And I don't know if he's going to get those.
Me neither, Kevin. And this is quite an upgraded Protoss army. Like, +2/+2 is about to kick in. And that is a lot of damage. Cham is in trouble, Kevin.
I actually think Pacomike is winning the game. He does have a slightly oversaturated fort base. There were 37 probes on that mineral line and no gas is taken. But that army, I mean, just like Shakira's hips, that doesn't lie. That's +2 air weapons and +2 ground attack. Cham is going to try to find a cute little engagement from this side. Does not one-shot a carrier, and this is going to be a very difficult hold for a Mexican Zerg player who's currently in Korea. One carrier is exposed and it will go down, but that's still a terrifying Protoss force.
I love how he was using his Archons for a moment there. He's trying to keep them, look, he's baiting, keeping the Corruptors at bay, and this is very problematic for Cham to deal with. Those Corruptors are so plumped up.
Yep, the Archons are looking for hits. They're not really getting the hits yet. It's important we don't lose all the Archons against the Roaches, though. I'm afraid that Pacomike has kind of overstayed his welcome as he lost all the Interceptors a while ago. So the army that he's got left is actually not that powerful anymore, and it seems like it is going to be barely enough for Cham with all the reinforcements on the ground to wipe out the Archons, wipe out the Zealots. I almost felt he was too eager, man, to get hits off with the Archons on the Corruptors. So the Archons weren't fighting at all, and they started to die against the Roaches.
Yeah, you're totally right. You're totally right. Because as much credit as we were giving Pacomike, Cham actually cleaned that up a lot easier than he should have. And this Corruptor Ball, it stayed alive, but the Roaches, they reign supreme. It's one of those situations, right? GG, Cham takes it, but Pacomike, he kind of made a call, but honestly, moving a little bit there might have been a bit better for him, or just making the big call and just going all ground.
Absolutely. I think just moving there would have actually given him way more DPS. It's very tempting to position your Archons under the Corruptors and get those juicy shots off where they splash over all the targets. But that didn't happen, and obviously kudos to Cham. He deserves all the credit for that, because sometimes the Zerg players are like, oh no, I really need to fight now. And then that does happen. But Cham was patient. He's like, all right, if your Archons ain't fighting, my Roaches are starting to do all right on the ground. And because it was such a long fight, the Interceptor count was pretty much non-existent, as the Spore Crawlers had taken care of the majority of the Interceptors. That's a shame, man. There was a real opportunity there for Pacomike to pick up game 1.
Absolutely. And I was just thinking about it even more. Like, you kind of go the carriers to force out the Corruptors, which are kind of useless. But the carriers ended up being super useless there, given that they had no Interceptors. And your ground army, you're using it to deal with the Corruptors for your useless carriers with no Interceptors. Yeah, it was just all a bit like, you know, the domino effect. It kind of went against him there. Instead of him doing a strategy to force his opponent to make useless units, he kind of almost did it himself in that particular situation.
And obviously, when a fight goes on for such a long time, the defender's advantage becomes very important. And Cham had a lot of extra Roaches pop during that battle, a couple of Corruptors coming in from the different bases, while Pacomike did not have a gateway nearby, or a pylon, or a war prism to get those quick reinforcements going. So the longer the fight goes, obviously the bigger the advantage for Cham, in this case being the defender. It's a bit unnecessary, Ben, because there was not one, but I think 2 opportunities for Pacomike to win that game. If with his opening, he would have reinforced with Void Rays. After the first 2 carriers immediately built Void Rays and had Flux Veins, I actually think that spirals out of control there, and he probably has 3-4 Void Rays, 2 carriers against 10 Corruptors. I think he just wins the game immediately. But then even later on, I think he had a realistic shot at winning the game too, if he would have microed that a bit better, or eventually retreated when we realized we were starting to lose our Interceptors, and be better to take a little moment for ourselves.
No, absolutely. I'm with you every step of the way. And spawning over, or rather, we're getting into the second game of this series. Spawning over in the top left-hand side of Romanticide as our Red Zerg. Currently 1-0 up, it is Cham.
And that, of course, means that at the bottom right side of Romanticide, we're looking at the main base of our Mexican Protoss player. He's been around for a while, but it seems like he's been getting better over the last few months. It is Pacomike. Surprisingly close game, though, Ben. Sorry, go ahead.
It's all good. It's all good. But we can't see each other while we're casting, Kevin. You know, we've been friends for so long. We like to talk at the same times and stuff, you know. But yeah, it's very. If he did go a lot of void rays, especially with flux veins, never mind flux capacitors, nothing in Cham's army would have been very good against those. You know, it was all armored. Like I know bios can be a bit tricky to deal with when you're moving your voids about and stuff, but for real, like Cham's army, it was not that finesse kind of army we talked about. It was just a brute force army, and brute forcing against void rays and stuff with corruptors, it isn't the easiest thing in the world.
Nope. And then the best thing that could happen for Cham is to kind of keep fighting. But normally you see that, and then it's at least 5 bases, maybe a 6th base on the way, a ridiculous amount of drones. That was actually such a close game, because if Cham would have lost a single fight, a bit more one-sidedly as he lost maybe some of them, it would have been over, man. Like 81 drones, 4 bases, Roach Corruptor against what Pacomike was going for. In a way, Cham was all in, even if the final fight took place on his side of the map. Like, he needed to win the game in the near future, and somehow got the job done. Whenever you say flux capacitors, though, Ben, I do start smiling, and I think back of Eternal Palace and how much I missed that map.
Ah, yeah. I mean, you did name it, what was it, Eternal Empire?
Yes.
Wait, what was its real name?
Yes, Eternal Empire, Ben.
I mean, Eternal Palace sounds so cool, honestly.
Sounds like one of your World of Warcraft dungeons to me.
It turns out it was a World of Warcraft dungeon, you know? Oh, how do you feel about this one, Kevin? I feel this is something I'd see on your stream.
What? No. How am I ever going to proxy a Stargate?
I don't know, Kevin. How do you proxy a 3rd base is what I'm asking.
Well, against those Terrans that don't know how to scout, you can get
This troubles you, a proxy Stargate, as opposed to a proxy... When you do... I'm out of here, Kevin. As I said, I can't fight. I'm too tired.
No. What I like about this, though, is obviously the Oracles show up very early. It's kind of an old school play. But if you guys wonder why did Protoss players stop doing this, is that once your Stargate is out on the map and the initial set of Oracles is out, you often lose the pylon, you lose power to the Stargate, and it kind of opens the door for Mutas down the line, right? And it's like, okay, you lose power to the Stargate. Now the Zerg player can go Mutas, and you don't have that option anymore to build a couple safety Phoenixes at home. And that's why you don't see it very often. But hey, the timing is going to be razor sharp on that first adapt. And let's see if Pacomike can find the damage that he's looking for.
Yeah, right now he's just keeping him busy, showing him everything normal with the adepts and stuff. We've also seen from Cham, he hasn't been so eager to scout with his Overlord, a bit of an laser play with that Overlord over there. But this Oracle is exceedingly quick. Oh, just going for the main as well. I like that.
I like it too, because there were 2 queens in the natural, but there's only a single queen in the main, and the bases are not connected on creep. So this forced Oracle shows up incredibly early, before the 4-minute mark. Don't forget about the adepts that are still nearby too. They decided to shade into the natural. But still, 6 drones is a pretty solid start.
Adapts definitely not bad at all, and the lost mining time, that was pretty huge. Like, he's got a 10-worker lead at this moment in time, which is awesome.
Cham is immediately going to look for that proxy Stargate. He knows that first Oracle was a bit quicker than it's supposed to be. The second Oracle is just going to try to settle for a stasis trap. It will get the trap off. Only a single drone gets trapped.
So 2 Oracles. This is a beautiful map for stasis traps, by the way. Like, there's so much dead air behind the natural and above the 3rd kind of thing. It get very dicey. And even if... Oh, he's actually trying to make a Void Ray out of that Stargate. That's...
ambitious.
Ambitious, that's the word I was looking for, yeah.
It's never going to see the light of day. And this is kind of what I meant, the big downside of opening up with the proxy Stargate. Sure, your Oracles show up a bit quicker. Good chance you find some damage, but now you don't have a Stargate anymore. And what I notice in the qualifiers of the Latin American scene is that all the Zergs here, they love to play Roach into Muta. Sometimes they barely even make a Roach, and I will not be surprised at all to see Cham drop a Spire in this game. Not to go Corruptus, but to go Mutalisk after the Roaches.
I am liking how Cham's producing his Evo Chamber and Roach, Warren. It's kind of like how Terrans wall off a little bit on this map. But Cham, he's looking to deal a little bit damage at this 3rd. Does get the shield battery down. These adepts are nicely placed though for Pacomike.
Yep. Stasis trap, very ambitious stasis trap. It does not go off. The Oracle goes down instead. The second Oracle is in a lot of danger too. What are we doing, Mr. Pacomike? I'm not sure what he was looking at. Maybe trying to gun down a few more drones with the adepts, but like losing one Oracle is kind of, it is what it is, but losing both of them, Ben, that's a bit of a disaster. Because how on earth is Pacomike gonna scout now in the upcoming minutes?
He's not, is he? I mean, like, he does have a couple of sentries out in the field, and I mean, he could use those for like hallucinations and stuff, and I guess that's what he's going to do. But it looks like his mind's already made up. He's going for his second robo here. 2 robo on 4 gateways. What do you think about this? This feels all of it. This feels full NA at this point.
Yeah, I mean, obviously it's going to allow him to make an Immortal and a Prism at the same time. If he wants to do that, he can get some observers out and scout like that, but I mean, desperate times call for desperate measures, I guess. The biggest problem is that he's not going to be able to scout. Maybe the Adepts can actually see the Infestation Pit, as it seems like it's going to be Roaches and Swarmhost. Also one of Cham's absolute favorite options.
Yeah, I like when Cham was actually doing really well. Yes, he was predictable, but he was so good with his Roach compositions, his Infestor compositions and stuff, and also Swarmhost. He loves this group of units.
Yep. It's going to be hard for Pacomike not to take any damage against all these locusts that are heading his way. I like that Cham is already starting to take care of the rocks to make it a bit easier for these swarm hosts to start roaming around. It's going to be hard, man, because right now the Protoss army, it simply doesn't have a lot of DPS. And if you have no DPS, it's very difficult to deal with locusts.
Oh, it certainly is. Like locusts, they deal damage so damn quickly. Obviously, one of the weaknesses of locusts is, well, Swarmhost is that they're very supply inefficient. They're 4 supply each, which is crazy. Also, the locusts, that wave, that's so much of your damage. In fact, that might be, you know, a good 60-70% of your army's damage. Like the rest of this army of Cham. It's not that scary at all, but Pacomike barely has anything, and that's an exposed robo if I've ever seen one.
Yep, that robo's gonna fall immediately. It was a good little scout there by Cham, actually. He sent one Zergling ahead of the party, trying to see what was waiting for him, and he's like, well, you've got nothing. That means you're out on the map. That means I can just run in there immediately, and that's what he wants to do, because if he would have waited, now Pacomike is gonna recall, but that obviously means everything is gonna be quite bad. It seems like the first wave of Locusts has already expired, but now all the Roaches are gonna make their way to the bottom side of the map. Queens are gonna try to buy some time. And I honestly feel that we are just waiting for this clock to keep ticking until the Locust can spawn one more time, and that should kind of do it. Because the rest of the army of Pacomike is not very powerful.
Yeah, I mean, Pacomike's trying to buy what time he can, but, you know, this is too much to deal with, and now the Locusts are flying in too. I wouldn't be surprised if that Nexus just falls immediately if he clicks on it, which he does, and
the Robo probably too, mate. I don't think it's just going to be the Nexus. I think the Robo is in a lot of trouble too. The Robo will fall to the final wave. Locusts are ridiculous.
The DPS is insane from those, and Pacomike, he's running out of his natural, but there's no natural there to speak of, and he's still fighting, man. He's still throwing zealots across the map, but Cham, he's just got a bit too much by the looks of it.
Like, imagine if we would have kept those 2 oracles alive. Wouldn't it have been so much nicer? The moment that he started creating some chaos and he caught the queens, that would normally mean that now you have 2 oracles roaming around with 120 energy or something. Then you can just start unloading on these Ravagers, on these Roaches, maybe the Swarmhost, and it would have all been a bit